From time immemorial, man has wrestled with the earth, sweating to improve his standard of living. Now, halfway through the 20th century, in many parts of the world, men are still doing it the hard, old way. There is one big difference, however. The man who has been doing it the old way is today learning about the new way and what it could mean to him. And he is determined to have it, not in 1,000 years or so, but very soon. Why should businessmen care about this man's desire to increase his productivity? Because this man and millions like him are becoming customers very fast. How? By working to increase their productivity. For when productivity rises, the market potential for both industrial and consumer goods rises. And rising consumption is, after all, the goal and measure of economic progress. Obviously, this man is now a customer. Is this process really taking place around the world? How fast? Well, let's examine some figures. They show an extraordinary leap in free world production and consumption in the last 10 years. Take passenger cars, for example. Cars on the road, not counting the United States, have tripled. Take telephones, doubled in 10 years. The production of crude oil up more than 150%. Steel production, in 10 years, it has doubled. These leaping figures have also been accompanied by an increase in world trade volume, which, to the astonishment of economists, is up over 80% since 1948. Even more interesting to market-minded businessmen is the composition of this greatly expanded trade. Before the war, it broke down as 2/3 agricultural goods and raw materials, 1/3 manufactured goods. Today, manufactured goods have zoomed up to over half the total. That's why marketing men are so interested. They're asking, what is responsible for this tremendous leap? Was it the mighty production forces and rich resources of the Western Hemisphere? Only in part. The star performer was the chewed-up economy of war-torn Europe. Let's look at what has happened there since 1946. At the end of World War II, Western Europe was in bad shape. Business was mighty sick. But the patients surprised the doctors. By brilliant planning and Spartan operations, Europe's managers within a few short years had her back to her pre-war production capacity and operating at a profit. This was good news for Europe's investors. But the managers of Europe's business were not content when they reached pre-war capacity. They added new plants and equipment. They put on more men. Not all Europe's businessmen were in favor of this policy. Who's going to buy all this? That's what he wants to know. What he doesn't know is that rising productivity has led to increased purchasing power all over Europe, until one day, our typical worker family, having finished the week's shopping, having bought more food and clothing than ever before, find they have money left over. An historic moment for the economy of Europe. It was big news for everybody in the world who had something to sell, and how they went into action. With the arrival of discretionary buying power came the beginning of a mass market in Europe. The That's why passenger car ownership jumped 100% in 5 recent years. Ownership of TV sets nearly tripled in 3 years. Tractors on the farms of Europe doubled in a short 5 years. Europe has new houses at the rate of 1.75 million a year. And still, production in Europe has only reached the level of United States production in the 1920s. But there's no reason why they shouldn't continue to close the gap. Because Europe has broken through. She now has the capacity not only to keep building her productivity, but also to keep raising the standard of living for her people. This combination is why things are different overseas today.
The big change that has come over Europe. Is it just a lot of statistics, or is it visible to the human eye? No, the change is visible, all right. It's visible everywhere. The old alongside the new. In the ancient cities, new ways of building things, new ways of doing things. Roads 1,000 years old are being modernized by machinery. But the new roads, and the old roads as well, are already overcrowded. Old problems give way to new ones. On Europe's farms, the tractor has been a big change. Electricity has been another. The mechanization of the farm has made Europe more self-sufficient in food, has made possible the cultivation of marginal land, and freed millions of men and women for the continent's expanding industry. Millions of new people on the payrolls have created a new, different pattern of distribution for Europe's family incomes. A fast-growing middle-income group. Fewer very rich and fewer very poor. More and more families with discretionary buying power. Here is a group of industrial employees enjoying winter sports in northern Italy. These great economic developments have produced spectacular changes in Europe's way of doing business. The consumers, with their new purchasing power, become the key figures in the process of marketing. The market researcher has become a familiar figure in the streets, the marketplaces, and the stores. Is there a market for the product? Should the package be changed? What about size, color, price? What about advertising? Advertising is sweeping Europe. In France alone, the volume of advertising is 4 times what it was in 1950. And this is the trend everywhere. The techniques of modern marketing have become a prime concern to Europe's businessmen. Small wonder they have gone back to school. Management schools like this one are thriving all over Europe. The French National Employers Council is even giving a seminar exclusively for presidents of companies. The change in Europe's marketing is seen most dramatically, of course, in Europe's new retail stores and supermarkets. In Britain, Switzerland, Italy, Spain. In Germany alone, 60 new supermarkets a month. There are also new retail outlets and techniques for larger items. For the consumer durables, appliances, automobiles. Installment buying, once condemned as economic heresy, is now flourishing all over Europe. In Britain, installment buying now accounts for over 50% of sales of TV sets, radios, and furniture. Another new development, the discount house. One discount house in Paris doubled its business in a year. Yes, Europe has broken through to new economic levels, thanks to the vitality of her workers and businessmen. We see the dramatic evidence, not only in Europe's cities and on her farms and highways, but also in her harbors. The United States may well consider that her post-war aid to Europe was among the best investments ever made, and one of the most far-reaching. Because since Europe must import about 20% of what she consumes, a rise in her standard of living is a boost for all the other economies in the world. The other economies? Let's look at some examples. Yes, in many parts of the world, men are still doing things the hard, old way. This happens to be a part of Africa. But even here, we begin to see evidence of change. Elsewhere in Africa, it is far greater. Here is Johannesburg, chief city of South Africa. Every day, more than 300 trains go in and out of this great modern city. Puerto Rico has expanded its industrial output fantastically, thanks to Operation Bootstrap. From 21 industrial establishments to more than 500 in 10 quick years. In India, the Tata steel mills, employing 80,000 men, are completing an expansion program to bring production to 2 million tons per year. Beautiful Bogota, capital of Colombia. Passenger car registration here has multiplied 5 times since before the war. Ghana, the new African Republic. Here, the women still carry their bundles in the traditional old way. But they boast they've been opening new schools at the rate of a school a day. It's a long way from this African classroom to London or Brussels, but the economic breakthrough in Europe has created new markets for the raw materials of the rest of the free world. The oil of Venezuela, for example. Many of these countries are using the proceeds from the sale of their natural resources to raise their standards of living, to build a diversified industry and a well-rounded economy. You in the sparkling streets and dramatic skyline of Caracas, capital of Venezuela. The rich resources of Mexico have provided the capital for new housing, new industrial developments, from Yucatan to Monterrey. Chile, to utilize the wealth of its great forests, is building up a pulp and paper industry. In the Belgian Congo, workers and their families are flown in from remote villages to be trained for the jobs of industry. They have come here to Elizabethville to use their skill and strength in the production of great quantities of copper. This, with the Congo's other rich mineral resources, has boosted production of her whole economy 55% in only 6 years. But while industrial development is important, in some countries, other things must come first. Food, for instance, is the main problem in India. An old answer to an old problem. But the old answer isn't good enough. Through small projects and large, millions of acres have been improved and food production increased 15% in 5 years. Food is a common problem. Health is another. In Southeast Asia, clinics like this are beginning to answer some of the desperate need for medical care. In Malaya, for example, the death rate has been cut in half in the last 10 years. Another problem is education. In the Philippines, the demand for education is so great that 10 universities are now crowded with students. Another almost universal problem is transportation, which affects every part of the economy. But this problem is being tackled by each country in its own way. In Brazil, they're talking about a $142 million railroad. In Venezuela, they're spending $350 million a year on roads and other public improvements. New railroads and highways are changing the face of every continent. But of course, they have a long way to go. There is the problem of half the world, the old way and the new way. How long will it take these hard-working countries to close the gap between themselves and the advanced economies? No one knows. But remember the example of Japan. 100 years ago, Japan was a feudal, peasant society with customs and rituals from the ancient past. Production methods in agriculture, fishing, manufacturing had remained static for 1,000 years. So it was till 1873. Then in 30 short years, Japan built herself to one of the leading industrial powers of the world. No one expects every country to duplicate this achievement. But enormous progress is being made. In Latin America, for example, production as a whole has been going up at a rate rivaling the United States. And with a steadily increasing share of output going back into investment, there is good reason to expect this growth will continue. In Venezuela, industrial employment has tripled since the war. Brazil has tripled its steel production in 10 years. And Brazil's auto industry will soon reach its goal of 130,000 autos, trucks, and buses per year. This same story can be told, of course, about Africa. This is Salisbury, capital of the Rhodesian Federation, whose recent rate of economic growth, 9% a year, is probably unmatched anywhere else on Earth. New industries are sprouting. Africa does everything in a big way. New construction in Liberia. Highways for the Belgian Congo. A railway for Rhodesia. A new refinery going up in Portuguese West Africa. Here, typically, much of this expansion has been financed by outside investment. And as long as a climate attractive to investment and credit prevails, this will continue. Taken overall, the African economy has been growing 5% a year and is still growing strong. The people of every poor country today are not only determined to build the productivity of their economies, they also want to be customers right now. They want to enjoy the goods produced by the rest of the world. The women of Africa bought over $20 million worth of sewing machines in a year. In India, the bicycle is both a need and a luxury. Sales have doubled in 3 years to well over 1 million. American soft drinks are making thirsty converts all over the world. Yes, people everywhere are becoming customers. Sales of modern equipment create a powerful impact all over the world. Yes, people are becoming customers. And as their own economies grow and expand, they become even better customers. This is what accounts for the dynamic expansion of world trade, doubled since the war. And this potential is what is making business international-minded. No wonder international air travel is up 8-fold in 10 years. And a London businessman will be in Paris on Tuesday, Singapore Thursday, Hong Kong Friday. This is why American businessmen fly to Frankfurt or Montevideo for a day of conferences, to check a process, verify a price, or meet a customer. Businessmen travel halfway around the world to study marketing methods in the United States. And they not only learn, but teach. It's true the world over. No country can satisfy all the needs and wants of its own people. So, American bus parts are assembled in Japan for shipment to Latin America. Jute in India for delivery in San Francisco. Kerosene from Indonesia arrives in Europe. Grain, tractors, rubber, for all the markets in the world. Stores and supermarkets everywhere sell goods from everywhere. There are good, sound businessmen's reasons why so many companies are committing themselves to marketing their products internationally. For one, the simple reason of profits. American investment overseas has tripled since 1945. But philosophically, more and more businessmen see the vision of the single world market. The market is eager. Here is Accra, without docks or harbors, determined to import the goods she needs. Yes, a single world market. And what a market it will be when more of the vast millions of Asia, Africa, and Latin America are added to it. Living is already getting better all over the world. Living standards are rising. Leisure time is increasing. The potential for business expansion is enormous. Whether it will be realized depends upon a spirit of enterprise among the leading trading nations of the world, maintenance of a favorable climate for investment and credit, and adherence to sound economic and financial policies. The realization of this potential will assure rising living standards for all people and will offer the best hope for world peace.